Hello and welcome. You're listening to Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network, our weekly podcast where we analyze the latest in advertising, marketing, customer behavior, new product launches, retailing, branding, everything marketing. I'm Barbara Kahn, the Patty and J.H. Baker Professor of Marketing, and I'm joined by my co-host, Americus Reed, the Whitney M. Young Jr. Professor of Marketing and the Brand Identity Theorist. And today we are so happy to have as our guest Stacey Andrade-Wells, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Liquid IV. In case you've never heard of Liquid IV, Liquid IV is a wellness brand that's focused on hydration, functional beverages, and also does culturally relevant, purpose-driven marketing. And Stacey leads the brand strategy, consumer marketing, and innovation for Liquid IV, which is one of the fastest growing wellness brands in the country. By the way, probably the most important part of Stacey's background is that she's a Wharton grad. We're so happy to have her. Hello, Stacey. Hello, Americus.
Hi, Stacey. Hey, Barbara.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Excellent. That's awesome. And by the way, before we just jump into this, I have a video of no, sorry, Barbara's like, why are you pivoting? I'm sorry. I just have to say this. I have a video of Stacey in my undergraduate class presenting to Microsoft colleagues on a group project that they did during that term many, many years ago. So I'm excited to talk to
Whoa.
Stacey. This is awesome. But go ahead, Barbara. Yes, let's
Wow,
get into it.
that's kind of where I wanted to start before we get into Liquid IV and your exciting Super Bowl commercial and all this other stuff. Stacey, you were at Wharton,
Yes,
and then where'd you go after Wharton? Did you go to P&G after Wharton?
I did. I started my career at Procter Gamble. I did a summer internship there while I was still in undergrad. And actually, I remember going to you, Americus, about this opportunity and saying, like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, what should I
Yes.
do?
Yes.
And,
And what was my sage advice?
you
What
said,
did he say?
I think you said something along the lines of like, hey, there's no better school in brand management than Procter and Gamble. And this is a great opportunity for you to start your career here. Like 100% go for it. I had never been to Cincinnati before. I grew up on the East Coast. And so that was, he said, just do it. Like,
Just
do
do it.
what you need to do. And it was
Nice.
absolutely the right advice. It could not have been a better move for me to start my career there. It was wonderful training ground in brand management, especially on top of your phenomenal class, of course.
Well, thank
Um,
you, Stacey.
but yes, now I've moved over to the Unilever family. So I've been here
Nice.
for the last 4 years, and that also has been an incredible journey to be part of that broader company, but also kind of be in the world of Liquid IV within the Wellbeing Collective umbrella. So yeah, together they've been an amazing experience.
So let's go back to P&G just for a second, though. So your background really is in brand, then. Like at P&G, I have here that you worked at the Gain brand. Did you work most of your career that you were at P&G on one brand?
No, so I actually started my career there in surface care, and I worked on Mr. Clean was the first brand I ever worked on. Then I moved over to Swiffer for a while. I worked across innovation and commercial growth and brand building on those two brands. I moved over to Fabric Care, and I worked there for a while. It actually started there in a bit of more of like a marketing sales role where I was working the club channel, all the innovation for the club channel and promotional strategy for all of Fabricare. And then the last 3 years of my time at Procter and Gamble was on the Gain business. So I led the Gain laundry and fabric enhancer business for them. And then that was when I made the move out to Liquid IV and out to California. So big change both professionally and personally after quite a long stretch with P&G.
Yes, that's kind of interesting. And you said Liquid IV is owned by Unilever. Is that what you said?
Yep, acquired in
So,
2020.
I mean,
Wow.
I don't want you to, say anything not kosher, but here you are working at two of the biggest brand companies, P&G versus Unilever, and in both cases working on specific brands. Do you have some big picture takeaways from those two experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think there's a reason why both are powerhouses in the world of CPG. I think they both have their absolute strengths. What I took away most from my time at P&G was a bit more on like the brand management side, which was the roles that I occupied there, kind of learning a bit about fluency with the P&L, how to drive commercial growth. A lot of those businesses have been around for decades. They're legacy brands, and you're learning how to grow a business in mature categories. So that takes a lot of creativity when it comes to the commercial drivers that you can manipulate to grow the business. And that was a foundational experience on that front. I would say when I came over to Unilever as part of Liquid IV, Unilever was in a very different, Liquid IV was in a very different life
Right.
stage than brands
Mm.
I had
Ah,
previously worked on. It was very high growth, much smaller at the time in terms of total revenue. And the marketing model was quite different. So it
mm,
had taken a page out of the beauty playbook, was
ah,
very heavily invested in influencer marketing, event activations. And so
Oh,
that
that's
also
so
then
interesting.
yeah, so it
super
helped
interesting.
open up my mind to the world of like true integrated marketing. What does it look to
Mhm.
lead a business that is very large in D2C and e-commerce as a percentage of the total business, which is not true for the majority of P&G brands. They're very retail heavy. So very different skill set
Yeah,
there.
really different.
Digital
Yeah.
first, yeah. So in many ways, they're very complementary. I think both bring amazing capabilities and competencies to the table, and it's been a real privilege to be able to kind of, absorb insights and knowledge from both of those incredible
So,
organizations.
like, I love that idea. So, P&G is definitely retail. You talk about grocery, you think about the detergent aisle or the cleaning aisle or things like that. Whereas I'll just tell you idiosyncratically, my experience with Liquid IV is I get it. The first time I ever heard of it is I got it in a little package that they gave away at weddings
Mm.
for hangover stuff, which sounds much more influencer, TikTok-y than
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
your traditional. So, I mean, that's just anecdotally, but my
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
experience with the 2 different types of brands that you're talking about are
Interesting.
radically different marketing strategies.
So, Barbara, are you saying, sorry to interrupt, Stacey, Barbara, are you saying you were hungover at a
No,
wedding
not
and you,
I just said
what?
they were the 2 you given out.
Allegedly.
That was like the
Understood.
yeah,
Understood.
with
That's cool.
aspirin. You got aspirin and Liquid IV.
That's interesting. Interesting. So right to your point, Barbara, the trial piece, it's something there like experiential right there, which is a completely different model to your point, Barbara, than to kind of the
Right,
retail model,
yeah,
if you
and
will.
I
Yeah.
I'm thinking that that's the way I experienced it, but I'm guessing that it's not an accident, it's part of what you're saying.
Absolutely, very intentional. We actually call that our sticks in hand program. And we just want to get as many sticks in hand as possible because the product, it really does work. So if you try it, you will buy it. And on an annual basis now, on the brand team alone, we can distribute upwards of 6 million sticks just in a given year. If
Wow.
you take into account all the sampling that we do from a retail standpoint and even the product giveaways that we do, with at like firefighter houses and things like that, we are distributing over 20 million sticks in a given year.
Wow.
So it is our goal to get this product in the hands of people because we know that really does work in a category has such low household penetration. Driving trial is critically important.
Mhm.
Trial in detergents when 99% of households are using some detergent or
Yeah, yeah,
another. It's
yeah, very
Yeah.
different.
incredible.
It's a
Yeah,
switching game.
yeah.
Yeah. That's super interesting. Stacey, I want to, because this is really interesting to me, to Barbara's point about your background coming from the world of brand management and stewarding a brand. Can you pause briefly and tell our listeners who may not know, tell us about the Liquid IV brand? What two things. Number one, what does it stand for? How do you conceptualize its ethos? What makes it different? I'm sure there are other things that are out there claiming to hydrate, and we know what those competitors are, and we won't say their names. But or maybe Barbara will later. But no, I'm kidding. No, but no, but seriously,
Yeah.
so like just talk us through, like, I mean, because to Barbara's point, it's like it's powder in a packet, sticks. We got to get 20 million sticks out there. How do you make what you're doing different? How do you build what is the brand, and how do you put it out there?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you think back to the hydration category about a decade ago, it was really focused from a positioning standpoint on high octane sports and highly competitive environments. Hydration was what you saw professional athletes focusing on. It was really for competitive sports. And the offerings that were out there in the marketplace were basically beverages that had artificial coloring, artificial sweeteners, very high amounts of sugar, all in plastic bottles kind of lining the shelves. And that was the nature of the hydration category. I think what Liquid IV was able to do was really introduce hydration in a way that felt relevant to a much broader cohort of people and really expand the role of hydration as something that is foundational for everyday wellness. It is the bedrock of your wellness routine. And we highlighted for people that you're dehydrated because you've been on Zoom meetings since 9 a.m. and it's now 2 p.m. and you haven't had a glass of water. You're dehydrated because you're walking outside in the heat in the peak of summer, and that's a dehydration moment. You don't have to be competing in these highly competitive sports in order to experience dehydration. It's something that is universally relevant.
Interesting.
So that was the positioning shift that really happened within the category.
When was
I think-
that? What year was that? What you were talking about?
So Liquid IV was founded in 2012. So we've been growing this business for over the last decade and really carving out this position of leadership within hydration. I think that proposition then has to be met with a product that really delivers. So, I always say this, but to me, incredible marketing without an incredible product is a one-way ticket to a fad. You need to have the product that is really going to deliver an incredible consumer experience and is going to justify the repeat that the brand needs in order to sustain over time. Liquid IV was able to offer 3 times the electrolytes of a traditional sports drink with
Wow.
a third of the sugar. And then over the last couple of years, we launched our sugar-free version, which makes it actually the only sugar-free functional beverage in the marketplace that has clinical studies that demonstrate it hydrates faster than water alone. There's a
Wow.
lot of sugar-free beverages out there that are making similar claims, but where are the clinical studies that back it up? They don't exist. So this Liquid IV has really anchored its point of differentiation on scientific superiority and our ability
Interesting.
to really show our homework when it comes to the claims that we are making in the marketplace.
So that's a
Interesting.
pretty good answer to your question, Americus. I think I
Yeah.
think she's laying out, a couple things that I just want to summarize because I think it's interesting. One, you're telling us that you kind of developed a category. Like in the beginning, it's like you built a new category. Then you differentiate your brand by the scientific claims is part of what you're saying there. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is that it was really good timing too, because as all of this stuff was happening, we've seen in the last, that's why I asked you on timing. I think in the last like 5 years or so, a really big growing area is this wellness area, this health area. So you introduced a really interesting category. You introduced an interesting brand, but the timing was good too, is what I'm guessing, because a lot of people are focusing on health and wellness, and that's where the growth is. So some of the good fortune of Liquid IV was being in the right place at the right time. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do think a lot of it is kind of the macro dynamics that are happening and the trends that you're seeing. So certainly the brand benefited from the growing focus on wellness. I do think the growth of Liquid IV was also able to kind of fuel the broader conversation on hydration and showing up in a way where we don't just talk about the product, but we talk about the broader focus on dehydration grows the total category. So that really has been our focus is how do we keep hydration as a need very top of mind when there's all these other different wellness trends or focus areas that are popping up for consumers.
Right.
And I think
That's a
like
good
part of
point.
how you kind of future proof yourself and make yourself relevant is understanding where is this category going? What is important to consumers when it comes to their wellness routines and habits? And how do we make sure that we're designing products that continue to meet those evolving needs?
Which is your point about fad versus trend versus so you don't want to just be a fad. It's fine that the timing's good, but it's got to be something that endures.
Exactly.
So, I mean, one of the other things I know, the part of the newsiness of having you on our show is that you're going to introduce your first Super Bowl ad. Now, what's interesting about that, though, is you were talking about more of a word of mouth, sticks in hands. That's a very different strategy. Super Bowl goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Building brand the P&G way. I mean, although they did it on soap operas, not Super Bowl necessarily, but still, network TV, building brand, which is very different than what you were saying, in the more sticks in hand, get the word out there, word of mouth and things like that. So why the pivot to a Super Bowl ad?
I think the key is really in how you show up at the Super Bowl.
Mm,
If we were gonna show up with a 30-second spot and call it a day, like,
mm,
yeah, that's a bit tired. It's a bit, been there, done that. We like to
right.
say here that we zig where others zag. So we're trying to find unique ways that we can show up, and because we are located in Los Angeles, this is where we were born and raised, we looked in our backyard, we said, "How would Hollywood launch a blockbuster film?" And we're gonna take a page out of that playbook, and we're gonna approach it that way.
Interesting.
And so, actually, even the days leading up to Super Bowl are huge building moments for us because we've partnered with EJ, who is a Golden Globe winning, Oscar-nominated artist, singer-songwriter. She is in the absolute apex of the cultural zeitgeist right now. She has
Hmm.
re-recorded Phil Collins' "Against All Odds," "Take a Look at Me
Ah,
Now." It's an iconic song. Her version helps us transcend generations and kind of reach a very broad audience, but do it in a way that's very linked with culture and is very
nice.
of the moment. So that actually released, I think it was last week, to incredibly positive reception and engagement on our digital channels. So kind of, Barbara, bringing back to your question of like, yeah, that's linear television. We're actually starting our journey in the worlds of Meta, Instagram, TikTok. Like, how do we drive engagement for what the brand is doing? We're going to continue to drop teasers and trailers leading up to the big day. And
Mm,
whereas most brands will release their Super Bowl spot in the weeks leading up to Super Bowl, we will not be doing that. Nobody
mm,
will see it until Super Bowl Sunday. And that's very intentional because that's the joy of Super Bowl, is seeing the ads for the
interesting.
first time and
Yeah, yeah.
talking about
Yeah,
them at the viewing party with your friends.
100%.
We talked a lot about the experiential marketing piece. We absolutely plan to have our field marketing fleets on the ground in San Francisco, in the two cities that will be competing in the Super Bowl. So experiential marketing is a very, very big part of our total campaign. You'll see influencer content, social content. There will be sticks being distributed. So it really is a comprehensive 360 approach to how we show up at Super Bowl. And there will also be a lot of activity happening the Monday after and even through
Oh,
the end of March to kind of continue that narrative through the entire
wow.
quarter.
Wow, that's cool. This is amazing. First of all, kudos for
Thank you.
figuring out how to do something with Phil Collins. I was in the gym this morning and I was listening to Phil Collins while I worked out, Barbara. So this is fantastic.
That's funny.
I mean, the man's voice is iconic, and to do a remix of a sort of culturally relevant, current, modern artist doing sort of a classic, nostalgic, iconic artist is just genius. So kudos
Thank
for that.
you.
But I wanted to step back because Barbara said something that was really interesting that I want to unpack just a little bit, and it builds on your discussion, Stacey, where you said, we're kind of defining the market as humans because everyone needs to be hydrated, and this sort of more mass approach. So, as the liquid IV community has evolved since 2012, and it's sort of like it's relevant to everyone, like Barbara was saying. Have you found that there are certain, like when you look at your customer, your typical customer, are there certain personas that have emerged kind of organically that, have kind of become a non-mass, kind of more of a niche customer? Are there pockets of
Yeah.
clusters, or is it just everyone? I mean, so I'm kind of interested in like how this has evolved over the last decade.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, while it is something that is universally relevant, so we're not like a men's personal care brand that's only relevant to a smaller audience. This is something that's applicable to everyone. But at the same time, there is what we call a design consumer that is kind of a more crystallized picture of the people who use liquid IV the most. So we've looked in our own consumer base and we've said something like the top 10 to 15% of people who use liquid IV, what are some of the things that we can learn about them to help identify people like them in the marketplace? And some of the things that we learn is like, if you were to rank your points of view on health and wellness or fitness on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being this is really not important to me, 5 being this is extremely important to me, I do Ironmans, things like that. Our top consumers in liquid IV tend to be in the like 4 out of 5 range
okay.
of that scale. So they are above average, focused on their wellness routines, their health and fitness routines. They are actively looking for products that have science-backed functional benefits. They want to read the ingredient label. They want to understand what those ingredients are doing, and even increasingly are interested in sustainability and social impact that the brands are doing and supporting businesses that they feel good about spending their dollar with. So some of those more like psychographic and behavioral, insights are really what helps us craft our messaging. It helps inform what are the hero usage occasions that we really want to show in our advertising. And it really guides a lot of the creative work that we do from a marketing standpoint. It also really helps inform our product development pipeline.
That's pretty interesting. Let me just back up on one thing you said. You said something about the social impact issues and things like that you might. So what are the types of issues you might make a statement about?
Yeah, so I think it is really important today to win both the minds and the hearts of consumers. That's where brands really are able to kind of build that loyalty and build that equity that creates community around the brand. So for us, that looks like our impact program. Over 1% of our company revenue goes to our impact program. And that program works with nonprofit organizations that are domestic and international that are working on creating access to clean water in communities that don't.
Perfect.
Actually, 2 million people in the US alone don't
Excellent.
have access to clean water. So it is a huge need. Everybody needs water to feel vitality.
I
Our
love
products
that.
need water to
It's
exist.
so perfect.
Yeah, it's
On
a
so
social
many
impact.
dimensions. I mean, it's an important area.
Yeah, it's a
It's
social
to
impact
the
mic drop.
Yeah,
Pretty-
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
well
to
done.
your brand. It speaks to your brand identity, your community, your health and wellness. It's genuine, it's authentic, and it's important. Like, wow,
Thank you.
perfect.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a lot of brands will do this on the side. We have an entire impact department that sits within marketing, a well-staffed team that manages these relationships with nonprofits. Every year we do an annual conference where we bring them together. It's really one of the only forums where these nonprofit organizations have an audience with each other to try to solve these challenges together. So it's a very, very important part of what we do. And we have also found that
So
our
good.
consumers, they do respond well to it, and they love the work
No,
that we're
it's
doing.
so perfect because it's also not a controversial, polarizing kind of club.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just, if you said, what kind of thing do you want to do that's going to make sense? This has got to hit everyone in the mark.
100%. Yeah. And it's to Barbara's point, Stacey, it's so fantastic because a big part of the brand exercise and the mission, the vision, et cetera, to what Barbara is saying is that, you're trying to create the thought leadership that in the space that then will create the permission structure to do a million other things.
Yeah.
Now, not just how,
And to build the brand. I mean,
you're building the brand. It's very
it's
powerful.
great to the brand and the
Yeah.
identity of the brand. That's just wonderful.
Wonderful.
So we have to
you.
wait to see exactly what, I like that idea of, what people talk about with the Super Bowl ad is you get all the hype leading up and then all the hype leading down. And typically what they do is, as you say, show the ad. And then people discuss the ad, then they see the ad, then they discuss it again. But you get to have all the conversation and still save some surprise for the big event, which is
Nice.
kind of a good way to do it.
Oh, it's
But
the
you don't
most
usually
fun
see it that
part.
much.
It's the most fun
Yeah,
part is to
yeah.
kind of see all the ads the day of. If we let the cat out of the bag early, then we give away some of the humor and some of the experience that consumers are looking for on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah,
So are you going to go to the Super Bowl? Are you as a sponsor?
So
Do you
I
get
will
tickets?
I will be in the area. But our team,
Nice.
we take our community management very seriously. So we are prepared to be interacting with other brands, responding to consumer comments on our social platforms. And so I will be in the war room with the team, responding in real time and kind of
Nice.
making sure that everything goes smoothly. So I won't be at the actual
Ah.
game, but I will be in the area.
Oh, so you're going to be monitoring all the social media activity that happens after the ad launches? Is that kind of what you're talking about? That's
Yes,
pretty
exactly.
interesting.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
So
So
do you have comedians in there or something? I mean, like, like, how do you respond, like, in a way that's clever? I mean,
that's
I
funny.
think that's really important to get that. You can get a lot to do that right. That's gotta be an important piece of the whole campaign.
Right.
Oh, there's an entire playbook on community response.
Oh, dear.
We have
Nice.
intentionally picked, a disruptive idea. So we expect that people will have feelings about it, will have comments about it,
Oh,
and
Oh, wow.
nice. Good
we
for you
are
guys.
ready with our witty responses. We don't hire comedians, although they are quite funny. Our copywriters and our community management team. So yeah, they're ready to
Nice,
go.
nice, nice.
That's now I'm really
That's incredible. And then
excited.
now our interest is heavily piqued. Let
Yeah.
me ask you this, Stacey, because we're pushing up a little bit here on time here. We Barbara and I often put our guests into the time capsule, if you will, and ask them to, because you're deep in this world in terms of expertise since 2012, building this amazing
Mhm.
brand. Take us 5, 10 years out. What does this space look like? What are the things that you and your team are paying attention to? Whatever those things are, like what are some of the things that you could share with us that is a more of a forward looking crystal ball that you'd like to kind of just impart a bit of wisdom with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in the wellness space, what we're seeing right now, and where I think this is going to go for the foreseeable future, is continued expansion on what functional benefits are available to people. So you're seeing everything from gut health to cognitive support.
Ah,
Especially with the growth of GLP-1s, there's a very big
Oh,
focus on
right. We didn't even get into that. Yeah.
very big focus on protein, fiber, which is really needed to allow your metabolism to continue to function on lower levels of food. And obviously, hydration continues to be a very big need,
Right.
especially with that growing trend. But I think,
interesting.
expanding our thinking into the world of functional benefits and how we can meet those shifting needs is going to be a very big focus for us. I think the second big wave that we can't go without talking is the explosive growth in AI.
Yeah,
So
data.
as AI continues to take off and becomes more consumer adopted, shopping experiences becoming available through your AI platforms, how do we
Mm,
make sure that brands are well set up to succeed in a world where a lot of people's searches are now happening on AI platforms?
hmm.
And ultimately, I think honestly, I think brands like Liquid IV stand to benefit in this situation because we have 12 clinical studies that we've completed. They are
Oh,
published in like very credible journals, scientific journals. We have an entire scientific advisory board that helps inform our product development. In a world where the category is becoming increasingly cluttered and it is
mm,
hard for consumers to discern what is real and what is not,
me too.
AI is actually going to be a very good tool that will help amplify where there is actual scientific rigor and credibility in the products that you are buying.
That's
That's
interesting.
so I know we're out of time, but I just do wanna that's a really interesting point, like how to leverage the AI platform. You wanna provide scientific information that they can pick up, so if people ask for, like, that kind of credibility, you already have it. It's not
Yep.
opinion, now you have the data.
Hmm.
That's just an interest it's clearly right for what you're talking about in your strategy, but it's also an interesting point for other brands to consider
Hmm.
how to leverage the AI platform and it's interesting to think about that as a search engine as
Right,
opposed to like a Google or an Amazon search or even a TikTok search.
Yep.
You're
right.
now talking about AI search and suggesting that credible claims, scientific
Ah,
evidence is
mm,
going to matter more in an AI search
yep,
engine than anywhere else, right?
Yep.
yep.
Like
Yep.
that is a very cool point. I love
Very
that.
insightful.
Stacy, but unfortunately, Americus asked you that terrific question right at the end of our time. So we want to thank you very much, Stacey Andrade-Wells, the CMO of Liquid IV, for joining us today. And tell us and our listeners where we can learn more about you and the brand and things you're doing.
Absolutely. You can follow us on Instagram, on TikTok at Liquid IV. LiquidIV.com is a great source for all of the brand knowledge. All of our latest clinicals and science backing is up on that website. And of
Hmm.
course, make sure you are seated on Super Bowl Sunday so that you don't miss our amazing spot.
No, I'm going
Uh,
to be there.
yeah. Oh, no doubt. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. That's all we have time for today. We'd like to thank our producers, Dion Simpkins and Marissa Rena. Thank you all for listening. listening today. We'll be back next week. Till then, this has been Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network. I'm Barbara Kahn here with Americus Read.